I have never done this before, had this kind of audience, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes. And I'm really excited to be doing something in the city. I work at the University of Canterbury in my absolutely fantastic lab, Te Puna Toyota, which looks at specifically at the effects of nutrition and nutrients on mental health. And I'll tell you a little bit about our research. But just before I start, I don't know, I'm going to give it a go. How many of you here know someone who struggles with a mental health problem, like a friend or a family member? Okay, most of you. So just how many of you now, again, hands up, think that conventional treatments have resolved their problems? There aren't any. Just to check, have these people you're thinking of been offered conventional treatments like medication or psychotherapy? Hands up if they got offered something. Okay, all right. So I hope you get from that really fundamentally what we're doing at the moment is not working for enough people. Currently in New Zealand, 1 in 5 of us is currently struggling with a mental health problem. That is the size of the South Island. And in terms of the number of people who are actually receiving treatment, we can think that about the size of Christchurch is what the number of people who are receiving treatment. That means about half of the people who are having a mental health problem in any one given year in our city or in our country are receiving no help whatsoever. The mental health report that came out around this time last year suggested that we should be giving more treatment, having more psychologists, more counselors, more centers, more services. And I absolutely agree that we need to have more of these services available to our population. But given what you saw there, that even when you receive treatment, sadly, not enough people are getting better. And that's really sobering and something that I think our government needs to acknowledge in terms of moving forward. So, what else can we do? What else can we think about? And this is what I've been wondering about for the last 10 years in my research at the University of Canterbury. I've been looking at the effects of nutrients, that is vitamins and minerals, we call them collectively micronutrients, on mental health symptoms in our community. People who struggle with ADHD, people who struggle with mood problems, people who struggled with stress after the earthquake. And we've been running the type of controlled trials that allow us to determine whether or not nutrients are relevant to the brain. And it might surprise some people, particularly those who were trained in the 1990s, which is I myself included, where I was taught that it's hard to believe that nutrition was completely irrelevant to the brain. But if we pause and we reflect on the biochemistry and all those cofactors that are required in order to make things like neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, adrenaline, or thinking about making hormones, they all require nutrients. So for us to think that nutrition is irrelevant to the brain is ignoring a huge, huge elephant in the room. So one of the reasons why I'm so excited about being here is that the Riverside Market acknowledges the importance of something that I call real food. We've had this social experiment going on for the last 100 years where we've been feeding people what I would call ultra-processed food. Processed food in itself could be canning, and that may very well be okay, or pasteurization. But when I talk about ultra-processed food, what I'm talking about there is those things that have got the long list of ingredients with numbers on them, or the kind of food that you might get if you were to go into a gas station or into a mini mart. Those foods represent currently about 50% of the calories that our population is currently eating. Two-thirds of the foods in a supermarket are ultra-processed. So when I went inside the Riverside Market earlier this morning, I was so excited to see the wealth of amazing foods, whole foods, that are available to people within the city center. There were fresh fruits and vegetables. There was A2 milk. There's the wonderful cheeses, cured meats, the fish which is so important in terms of getting your omega-3s for your brain. So there'd be one little comment I would say if there's any vendors, is I'd just please get rid of the Coca-Cola. It's not necessary in an environment like this. Coca-Cola has 0 nutrients in it, and yet 25% of calories that our young people are consuming come from fizzy drinks. It provides no nutrients for our brain. So if I could have any impact on this place, it would be, we don't need to sell that here. I hope Coca-Cola isn't listening. That wouldn't be a very good thing, would it? Okay. Thank you. So what do we know about the importance of real food on our brain and on our mental health and our well-being? There's been an enormous amount of research in this space over the last 10 years, and I've been thrilled to be able to share that with you, because if I had been standing here 10 years ago, then there wouldn't have really been that much to report on. But we now have epidemiological studies. These are those large studies on populations that look at the relationship and association between what you eat and your mental health. And the studies are all showing that the more you eat a Mediterranean-style diet, that is one that's high in fruits and vegetables, high in healthy fats, high in fish, and low in that ultra-processed food, then the more likely you're going to be well, and the lower your risk for mental health issues like depression, like anxiety, like ADHD. And then there's also research that shows that the more we eat that ultra-processed food, it's what we call the Western diet. The more we're eating these takeaways low in fruits and vegetables, then the greater our risk for mental health problems. And there isn't a single study out there that has shown that the Western diet has been good for our mental or our physical health. And yet, we continue to see this type of food as being okay to feed our children, but also for pregnant women to eat. And if there's anything that I could have an influence on, it would be there. It would be ensuring that pregnant women are well nourished, are eating foods that are nutrient dense, in order to increase the chances of both that woman having a good health outcome in terms of, say, reducing the chance of postpartum depression, but also in order to set that child off in a good and healthy start to life. So there's these epidemiological studies. There's also prospective studies. That is, studies that follow populations over time. And what we know now is that what you eat today is going to influence your mental health, say, 4 years down the track. And so that type of research is also compelling in terms of solidifying that association and relationship between our food and our mental health. And then finally, just in the last couple of years, there have been randomized controlled trials. These are the gold standard design in terms of making a difference and having an impact on public policy, that have shown that you can take people who are eating poorly, help them eat better, fresher, more whole food type of diet. I can't compete. And that this has had the effect of showing that you can improve their mental health in a very short period of time. And so my plea to our government, to our public health service, is to start putting food and talking about the food environment right at the forefront of considering those social determinants of poor mental health, and to consider the research that we've been doing at the University of Canterbury using nutrients in those instances where people may, for whatever reason, not be able to change their diet, or that diet change is not sufficient for everyone. Then we have a wealth of data to show that a broad spectrum of nutrients can also have a huge impact on our mental health. Randomized trials in the 1600s showed that putting limes aboard ships headed out for long voyages completely eliminated the 40% mortality rate from scurvy. But it took 264 years for the British government to mandate that all ships must carry citrus for their sailors. Hold that thought. How long is it going to take our society, and honestly, our public health system? I have been lobbying them for years. How long is it going to take for them to take it seriously that suboptimal nutrition is contributing to our current epidemic of mental health problems? So I leave you with those thoughts, and I really, really thank you for your attention. And I just want you to think about that every time you put something in your mouth, you make a choice. You make a choice of offering your brain something nourishing or something nutrient depleted. Thank you.